So this topic I wanted to talk about kind of since the beginning of the show.
Dawn of time.
Tale as old as time. And we wanted to talk about this for a while, but we just never got around to it because there was always something going on. So I wanted to talk about Gotham. Well played, Barney. The TV series. And when I originally thought of talking about this, the series finale had come out. It was last year, but the series finale for Gotham premiered on the same night as the early screenings for Avengers Endgame. So we took precedence and priority.
Oh, you're an Avengers fan, Merrick? That is such a sweet
Superman.
shirt, by the way.
That is a really
but
cool
that
shirt.
shirt is awesome.
Thank you. I like to put thought into my wardrobe. Imagine when I get the rest of my closet out. So obviously with almost all of our reviews, this is a spoiler-ish warning. We're not going to give away the entire plot and details, but I mean, surprise, Bruce Wayne becomes Batman.
What?
No, but on the
Merrick.
show though, I don't know if people have not watched it or they're like, it does take a while. Like you do have to go through quite a bit of the show.
If you don't know that the show is about Batman, then
then you're you know what I'm saying, like
delayed.
But if you're also like, yo, where's Batman at? I'm sorry, you have to.
Fair warning that you don't get any Batman anytime soon.
No.
Yeah. So the mission of this reflection of the show is I would like to encourage those that haven't started watching the show yet to watch the show. Every season is on Netflix now. It's wrapped up. All 100 episodes are on there. And I would like to celebrate how character-driven this show was. And what the show could do with their enhanced comic book characters, meaning, characters with superpowers, namely the supervillains. I think they did a really fair job with the pool of characters that they had at their disposal, which was essentially all of the Batman characters that they could play with, minus different namesakes here and there, and I'll get into that in just a moment. Brief production history in regards to the show. The show was developed by Bruno Heller, who was the showrunner for the series The Mentalist on CBS. Highly recommend that show. It's an incredible show. Great payoff on that. And that show, if you don't know, The Mentalist, it's a police procedural drama, but with serial storytelling elements, meaning there are plot elements that carry over from episode to episode and from season to season. Essentially, there's one killer, Red John, that is the central antagonist for almost the entire show's run. And so those serial elements and police procedural drama elements get pulled into Gotham, where rather than follow Bruce Wayne, we're following Jim Gordon before he becomes Commissioner Gordon, before he becomes a powerhouse in the Gotham City Police Department. He's just starting off as a rookie detective, essentially. And the show gradually goes from police procedural drama, it's really tough to say that word, it goes from that much more into the comic book serial storytelling where the villains all have overarching plots, and the question of who killed Bruce Wayne's parents was part of some bigger mystery that needs to be unraveled. So those kind of elements get brought into this show. So that's where essentially these ideas come from. Fun fact with the show. So the show was originally broadcast on Fox. On the Fox network, and the reason for that, rather than have it be on either the CW or CBS, where Warner Brothers has much more of a say in their product put out there, Fox actually had the TV rights to Batman in its entirety because they purchased the TV rights when Batman 66 was up for grabs, starring Adam West and Burt Ward from way back in the day. So they couldn't do any Justice League stories if they wanted to. Everything has to be set within the Batman pool, and they can use characters but without using the names. For example, Joker being the biggest one, they could use personas of the Joker, but they couldn't actually use the name Joker because they wanted to save stuff for the movies and all that stuff. Look how well that turned out, good and bad. But so there's legal writing and legal line drawing that needed to take place with the show in order for it to even happen. Let's move on to some of the highlights that we have for the show, namely within the characters themselves. I won't discuss plot elements here, but this show is great when you're dealing with its villains. Look at this wonderful list that we have here of all the different kinds of villains that we have. Megatron's covering a little bit of it, but that's okay. So
I'm moving it.
thanks, Barney. There we go. Oh, look at that. Look at all these wonderful characters that we have at our disposal.
Because you left all your toys out.
It's a dirty table, man. I mean, you have Catwoman, who's there from episode 1 onward, and she has an incredible arc that goes from beginning to end. I'm without giving spoilers because Derek is still watching the show, so I'm not going to spoil too much. I mean, Penguin is Robin Lord Taylor has done a great job with the character. Riddler's done really well. Jada Pinkett Smith kills as Fish Mooney, and for those that don't know, Fish Mooney is actually an original character for the show. So if you're trying to figure out where she came from in the comics, don't bother. She didn't exist before this.
Thank you,
Like a Jada Pinkett Smith
thank you for that, because I, you know what I'm saying, waited a very long time, and I was like, I don't remember none of this.
Well, you can't because she didn't exist.
Nice.
But definitely seems like a Jada Pinkett Smith move, in order for her to come onto the show. But I definitely think the show benefited from having her on. You have multiple character personas of Poison Ivy with different actresses and such. Scarecrow really comes into his own later on in the show. Mr. Freeze as well. Namely, the Joker bit, as I mentioned before, they couldn't actually use the name Joker, but there are still strong elements of Joker in the show. And in my humble opinion, I think that if it wasn't for the bits of Joker involved in the show, I don't know if the show would have lasted to 100 episodes or even past maybe a third season or so. What Cameron Monaghan has done with the role, or his roles, if you know what I'm talking about, on the show, he's done a great job. And I think it kind of helps save the show in a lot of ways. I mean, as soon as you throw in Joker into anything, it just elevates a project. I mean, look at what Joaquin Phoenix did with his persona on screen, so it makes everything better. And I will say, with Ra's al Ghul in particular, if you've seen the CW version of Ra's al Ghul, where Ra's al Ghul was the central villain of season 3 of Arrow, I like this version better, personally. I think it's a little more truthful to the comic. Not that I didn't like the persona from the CW, but if I had to pick and choose, I would take this one. This one felt like Ra's al Ghul through and through. And also, Bane comes in at the end, but I actually really appreciated what they did with his role, too, even though they only had 12 episodes to basically finish out the show just before Disney wound up buying Fox and 20th Century Fox in its entirety, as we've talked about before on the show. So Disney, just to clarify, Disney doesn't own Gotham, even though it was on Fox. I had to do some digging into that just to make sure. Once the series was done, the rights reverted back to Warner Brothers, so they have control of the series. And I'm pretty sure with Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox, all of the Batman TV rights have gone back to the CW and Warner Brothers and everybody else, hence why we can have a Batwoman series. That's just my theory, but I think it's a little justified, so take that as you will. And before I forget, in regards to the villains, there is an interesting relationship between Penguin and Riddler in particular that definitely deviates from comic source material for sure, but I can appreciate the progressiveness of the show. Even though it might not be absolutely faithful to your comic book iterations, I appreciate the attempt at trying something new, and I think the attempt at establishing some form of relationship with these two characters, I think, is very interesting, and I would recommend watching it for that, to see a different take on, Penguin, rather than something done from Danny DeVito's days in Batman Returns or Jim Carrey's version in Batman Forever. So Barney, why don't we move on to our heroes in this? While not as great as the villains, the show shines when you focus on the villains and you're able to give them their arc. So that's already the reason why I would recommend the show. But the heroes actually have some really good arcs too. Mainly James Gordon, as I mentioned before, he is the central hero of our story. It's not Bruce Wayne. It's not Batman. It's a Batman show, but Batman's not the star. It's James Gordon. And he has a lot of good guy moments and some bad guy moments too, particularly in season 3. So he definitely, you look into the world of Gotham and you see how he becomes Commissioner Gordon and how he becomes a great leader, the great leader that he needs to be in order to be a great partner for Bruce Wayne. And I think overall they stick the landing at the very end with his portrayal. Harvey Bullock definitely steals the scene in a lot of episodes. I really enjoy his portrayal a lot. Bruce took a bit for me to get around to. I don't think I quite liked his character as much, but I also think they stick the landing for him in the end when he creates his Dark Knight persona by the end of the series. It's going to happen. Like, sorry for the small spoiler here, but he does become Batman at the end. I think it would be disappointing if your Batman series didn't involve Batman in some way at the end. After 100 episodes, you better have a Batman. And yeah, Alfred in particular, I really liked his portrayal a lot as well. He's actually one of my favorite Alfreds. I think he actually is my favorite Alfred in media now that I think about it. He's just strong. He's a strong Alfred, and he doesn't take any crap from anybody. And it's great. So that's on the hero. So definitely, I recommend the show mostly for the villains, but the heroes are worthwhile too. They may do some things that you kind of scratch your head and just go, why would you do that? But if you stick around for the villains, that's what's worthwhile in the end. I would say the show really finds its footing in the 4th season. I know it kind of takes a while, to get through a show like that. You have to go through a bunch of television in order to get that far. But once you hit season 4, when you're able to really just focus on your villains, it really shines, and it gets there. And when I was watching it live on TV, when we were at season 4, I couldn't wait for the next episode. And I hadn't really said that about Gotham for a long time. It kind of felt like a chore some weeks to get through the show and kind of play catch up until it disappeared on Hulu. But it was definitely worthwhile. From season 4 onward, it finishes strong, absolutely. And some shows don't always get to do that. They start off strong and end weak. But this, I think, was kind of the reversal. And maybe I'm the only one that feels that way.
I think like season 4 is a magic number a lot of times.
It's like in baseball. It's like the clean, like, you know what I'm saying. You bat 4th.
Yeah.
That's the cleanup. You're supposed to be the big hitter. So if you get to season 4, you should. Season 4 is the big hitter, and it's really make or break on like. Even if you barely got there by the skin of your teeth, it really makes or break. Like if it was worth it.
Yeah.
If you're able to get through the first few episodes of the season where it's strictly police procedural. Particularly the Balloon Man episodes and the Spirit of the Goat episodes. I felt like I was watching Smallville, and I actually did stop watching the first time after those episodes aired. But apparently, when I stopped watching the week after the Spirit of the Goat episode, that's when they started going into Penguin's plot and starting to make him become the Penguin. No. So literally, it got better when I stopped watching.
When does James Gordon start going crazy?
He's in Gotham. He's crazy every day.
No, I mean he gets Scarecrow into season 3. I don't know. He starts losing his
season 4.
Season 4, like he starts losing his mind, 4. And that's yeah. You're right. I need to go watch season 4 till
Where are you now?
I'm midway. I'm at the midway season finale of season 4.
Oh, okay.
So I need to go finish.
You're in a good spot.
Yeah, definitely.
I need to finish.
So why I think the show was successful in the end, even though, yes, it was on Fox, so it wasn't in the big 3 networks, and yes, it kind of changed time schedules here and there. They had a lot of periods where they were just off. Sometimes they would have new episodes from September to November, come back in January, and then come back in April and finish in June. And it just very all over the place. But the reason why I think it's successful, namely, it made 100 episodes. That's your benchmark. If you can get to 100 episodes, that means you can sell it as a TV package to any network anywhere, and you will always be able to make money off of said content. That's what justifies success in television. If you can get to 100, God bless you. And they completed their story before Disney wound up buying them out. I'm sure they were scrambling at the end trying to figure out what they were going to do, and I'm sure they weren't even sure if they were going to get a 5th season to wrap everything up. But the fact that they were able to wrap up story elements and still progress characters, I applaud them, because I'm sure they were working around the clock just trying to finish everything off. They did not have almost any time to pull this show off at the end, but I really applaud them. And what I think is most important, I think they created engaging television that was as good as the Arrowverse on its off days. I still think the Arrowverse, as we've talked about before here on Knights of the Dirty Table, I think it's pinnacle DCdom, especially in the modern age of superhero media. But I think what Gotham did was it created strong DC television to compete with that in a way. And I do recommend it. It does take time to get there. But when you get to the villains, namely Jeremiah Valeska, aka Joker.
Mr. J.
That's when, yeah, Joker kind of just makes everything better. I mean, yes, he's a psychotic. Yes, I would not condone his behavior in the real world. But if we're talking about entertaining television, yeah, he's still kind of the best character that you can have. He always just makes everything better.
Or just entertaining content in general. I mean, he's always entertaining cartoons, movies.
I don't think there's really a bad
He's a
portrayal of
clown.
Joker that you can find.
He's a
Yes, you can
clown.
rank them, but
You missed that, Merrick.
sorry, what?
Craig just said he's a clown. I said he's entertaining. Oh, boy.
Mind you, I did just watch the Joker movie like yesterday, so
Oh my God!
For
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
yeah.
time?
yeah.
What'd you think?
I don't know why people were so like. I don't
that
know,
was-
like people were like kind of like off put about it.
No, that was a whole social justice
Because they couldn't accept that it
ridiculousness.
was too real.
Yeah, it was just
Oh.
there were people. Yeah, people were saying that it was like supporting incels and saying and like
All right.
people
All right,
hadn't
guys.
even seen the movie at that point.
The only
Alright.
reason why it had this much hype was because it was the Joker.
Yeah.
That's the power of the character. You do
Yeah.
this for any other movie
Yeah.
where it's set in like the real world,
Well-
people wouldn't even give it an eye unless it was at the Oscars. But in
That-
this case,
that-
it was Joker.
That was the key, though, that it was set in the real world in inverted commas. It wasn't like a cartoony comic movie.
And I think
And-
Gotham actually did a really good job with trying to keep it as grounded as possible. For a long time, I kind of wondered if it was set within the Arrowverse, like just because they were really using like flip phones for all their calls and stuff. Like they had set it up to be not modern day at all. And then I think that finally came to an end when there were two Ra's al Ghuls in the two separate universes. But that's fine. We have a multiverse. It's well established. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But I think they did a really good job of keeping everything as grounded as possible. Trying to make a realistic Mr. Freeze. Trying to make a realistic Firefly. You know, a penguin in Gotham that wasn't so deformed and decrepit, but was a little bit different.
The Riddler is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, the Riddler portrayal is great.
It was really good for
I'll have
like
to watch them. I
strong-
haven't seen any.
yeah.
Strong throughout.
Yeah.
I would say him and Penguin are probably the most consistent from beginning to end for the best. And it's not even necessarily that they don't betray their comic book characters, but I just think they're the strongest.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're right there.
I think season 3 Scarecrow, and I really thought they were gonna cancel Gotham around that time.
You know,
Whenever they started introducing Scarecrow, I was like, oh, they might cancel this
It's
now.
funny you mention that. I think they actually considered canceling the show around the time of season 3, actually around the time of when there was another Joker appearance, when Joker comes back to terrorize Gotham. I don't quite have it confirmed, but I thought I'd read reports that it was considered the idea, like if these numbers don't work out for this small Joker arc, we are going to basically pull the plug on the show. But the numbers were so great, and the show was so praised for this 3-episode arc in season 3 with Joker that they kept the series on for a little longer. So it was always like, how far can we get with the show? Basically, I don't think they ever knew that they were going to get a renewal until late in the game.
They got to the finish line though, which is
They
like
did.
you said, is best they could have hoped
And
for.
I mean, a lot was working against it. This was a show that really, if Warner Brothers had it their way, they would have basically produced a Batman TV series for CBS, but they legally could not because they did not have the TV rights to it. This was one of those cases, like similar to Marvel, where you don't know what you're selling until you've sold it.
Do you think that it's better for that? Do you think that we're all better off, having Gotham as opposed to a Batman TV series? I mean, it's all hypothetical, but
No, definitely. There's good and bad to it. The good, I think, is to allow different creative talents to produce new content and new interpretations on characters. That's why I actually think the X-Men being away for so long, it gave us portrayals that we might not have gotten that weren't exactly comic book accurate. Like probably if Marvel Studios was around at the time of the first X-Men movie, we would have probably not gotten Hugh Jackman as Wolverine because they probably would have tried to make it more comic accurate at the
imagine?
time, smaller.
yeah.
But look what
Yes.
Fox did with Hugh Jackman.
If
Hugh
they-
Jackman
if-
is Wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they had brought out any type of the yellow
Yeah.
Wolverine jumpsuit,
Well, there was
or
a little Easter egg, but yeah, if they'd actually gone with that,
if they gone, that wouldn't have worked. I don't think that would have worked. I would like to seen a Batman series. You ever watched? There's a show Lucifer, I think.
Yes.
Like I would want to see something like that. Like
Also set within the DC multiverse as of recently, which is great.
is it really?
Yes.
No
Thanks to the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Sorry, spoiler.
Are you kidding me? All right, so
It is DC. Lucifer was DC
I didn't know
either
that.
way, but
You want any crossover knowledge? Then come to Merrick.
yeah. Well,
boy.
how that show is kind of like I would want to see a Batman series like that.
Just like very dark or
Like
I'm
dark,
not
but like
familiar.
like it's like the like he's still Batman, like Lucifer's still Lucifer, right? And like, but he's like has a regular life, but it's like one of those things. It's like Monk.
Sounds like a bad sitcom.
No, it's like you know it. I mean,
Batman
it's like
versus
one
Batman.
I know what you're saying.
it's the same formula they have for these shows now, where it's a person who is not a that works for the police helps the police.
Oh yeah, like Dexter.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, but I would like to see like a, you know what I mean, like
Like Batman,
a Batman,
maintaining the anonymity in that way, and
Yeah.
yeah.
like you know what I'm saying, like how you got Smallville and how you know what I mean, like how you got, yeah.
Smallville.
I know.
No,
listen, I don't want
Merrick's
to.
not a Smallville
I'm not a
fan.
Smallville. They had a cut.
Smallville had a lot of fans though. Smallville
Gotham
was
started out like Smallville in terms of writing. Not gonna lie, it was kind of close.
but Smallville was a popular show.
They had to fill in.
Hugely
They had
popular,
they had to
right?
fill in
I still
Dawson's
don't know
Creek.
how it lasted 10 years.
They had to fill in Dawson's Creek and like
Yeah,
That, like-
it was Dawson's Creek for it was Superman
yeah.
meets Dawson's Creek, and that's
That's what the WB did. That's what
Yeah.
they did with a lot of their
Yeah.
shows.
See, that's the CW now, right? And that's why some of the shows that I can't like, The Flash sometimes feels that way for me. There are a
Yes,
couple of
but
shows.
it's better. It's
it is
better
better
than what we got. I'm not
Yes.
saying it's perfect, but it's tremendously. It is to me, especially with the recent. We've talked about this before, but I'll say it again for those that don't know. Crisis on Infinite Earths is easily the best DC medium anything that we've ever gotten, kind of without question. And
We're gonna-
actually, fun fact:
we're
the
gonna watch
Gotham actors were interested in taking part in the crossover. It's just how much time do you have to shoot everybody and pay everybody and all that stuff. So they actually, the actors could have said, like, we want nothing to do with that because it's the CW, it's beneath us compared to Fox. But all the actors after the show ended, they were, Ben McKenzie at least was like, I would love to come back and do this. David, I can't remember his last name, but the kid who plays Bruce Wayne, he would have loved to come back and portray a Batman on the show, but you just only have room for so much. You know, but I definitely recommend it in regards to the DC lore, especially as we're sitting around in quarantine and have nothing else to do. Watch 100 hours of Batman, starring not Batman. That works.